What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So the coaching and general manager carousel has been spinning this offseason. We've had 6 head coaches and 2 general managers hired thus far. We're still waiting on the San Jose Sharks to get their coach, but there hasn't been a ton of news around that and the fact that they weren't a playoff team or anything. So we're just making this video now. We're making the video now. We're going to be grading the 6 coaching hires and the 2 general managers. Give my grade. Give a 1 to 2 minute explainer on why I think it's either a good hiring or not. So without further ado, let's get into it. Lindy Ruff. This feels like it happened 3 months ago at this point, but he was hired by the Buffalo Sabres. I'm not huge on this. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna go with a C+. Yes, you think about the Buffalo Sabres, you think Lindy Ruff in the 2000s. He was the last coach that led them to the playoffs. So from that, it's maybe an inspiring hire. To the nostalgia is very big here in this hiring. But yeah, after I live in New Jersey, I watch a lot of Devils hockey. I was not very impressed with the Devils this season, and it wasn't just the goaltending. Their defense core was abysmal. Yes, Dougie Hamilton got hurt, but he's not really known for his defense. They were bleeding high danger chances this year. So in looking at it, heading to Buffalo with a bunch of young defensemen and a lot of their star players having down seasons this year, I'm not sure if Lindy Ruff's going to be able to turn it around. I like Buffalo. I hope I'm wrong, but Lindy Ruff, what is he, 65, 66 years old, starting to get up there in age? I don't really love it. It's not like Lindy Ruff is still this fantastic coach. Even last year when the Devils had their success 2 seasons ago, it's looking like that was more so maybe an Andrew Brunette that came in and just revamped things, considering he won the President's Trophy as the coach of the Florida Panthers. Then the Devils have a 50-point increase, and then the Predators end up making the playoffs as soon as he gets hired. I think that Lindy Ruff nowadays is definitely a bottom 3rd coach probably in the entire NHL. I'm still very high on Buffalo's core, so I think they are going to be a competitive team, maybe even make the playoffs. But Lindy Ruff is maybe that guy that can get you into the playoffs, and maybe that's all Buffalo's looking for at this stage. But in terms of being that elevator to help you go on a deep playoff run, I'm not sure Lindy Ruff is that guy. Speaking of ex-New Jersey coaches, we got the now New Jersey coach, Sheldon Keefe. For this one, I'm going to go with the B. I'm going to go with the B when looking at it. Devils, they got to make the playoffs next year. The playoffs expectations are there, and Sheldon Keefe has proved to you he can at least get you in the dance. Now, are there some serious concerns from me in the fact that he's going from having a couple of superstars that were kind of small, kind of soft, to now coaching the New Jersey Devils? Nico Hischier isn't really like that, but a Jack Hughes and Bratt, there's definitely some adjustments that Sheldon Keefe is going to have to make with his game, but I do think the Devils are overall in a better cap situation, better talent, younger in terms of that. They might not have the top talent, but I like the Devils' future a lot more than the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think Sheldon Keefe can bring stability to the New Jersey Devils. They kind of Lindy Ruff kind of lost the room towards the end. Sheldon Keefe is going to get on the same page as these players. Similarly to Ruff, not sure he's going to be the guy that can end up winning a Stanley Cup for them, but I expect the Devils to be back in the playoffs. And as a result, I think the Keefe hiring is pretty solid. I'm going to go with a B. Eric Tulsky was hired as the interim general manager for the Carolina Hurricanes. This is going to get a B for me as well. Tulsky is actually, I'm going to go B+. Tulsky's a brilliant individual. If you don't know about him, he went to Harvard for chemistry and physics, then went to Cal Berkeley for his chemistry PhD, was working on like nanotech, He was researching nanotech, and then he eventually started blogging hockey. Carolina Hurricanes scooped him up as a consultant, and then he's just basically been groomed in a good way, not the other ways, but he's been groomed to be that future next general manager of the Carolina Hurricanes, learning under Don Waddell, a very analytical backed guy. I think that hopefully he's not going full analytics. I think you need a good mix of both the eye test, the traditional hockey thought, as well as analytics. But I think Eric Tulsky, he's such a smart dude. I think this is going to be successful for the Carolina Hurricanes if he ends up maintaining the job as a general manager full time. Next up, Dan Bylsma coming back. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. I always mess up his name. But Dan Bylsma is back in the NHL after coaching the Pittsburgh Penguins and coaching the Buffalo Sabres. It did not end well in Buffalo, especially with star players like a Jack Eichel. So in looking at this, you got to hope that he learned lessons. And as a result, I'm going to go with a solid B for this. I'm going to be pretty generous to some of these hirings, but I'm going to go with the B for this hiring. Bylsma has been doing very good work with the Coachella Valley Firebirds, the Seattle Kraken's AHL team. So he's accustomed to a lot of the players that he's going to be coaching in the next 2 to 3 years in terms of the young talent there. On top of the fact that, this guy did win a Stanley Cup. He was a solid coach for a while. He was assistant for Detroit for a couple years. He he was not this recycled head coach that immediately got a next job. He had to put his head down and work his way up as an assistant, then an AHL coach. So hopefully he has learned from his mistakes. There are some mistakes. Hopefully he's learned from that, and he's going to be a good coach. Solid hiring by the Seattle Kraken. Wasn't my first pick to get a job, but once I realized, oh, he's the AHL coach, that makes a ton of sense. Familiar with the organization, and has won a Stanley Cup. So very, very decent resume for Dan Bylsma. Next up, Craig Berube, another Stanley Cup winning coach. I'm going to go with an A- for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Craig Berube, I don't think you can really blame him, especially not for this season. When you look at what St. Louis did last year, sold so aggressively. They admitted they were kind of tearing it down, doing a pretty heavy retool. Maybe last season when they started off so poor, you can blame Berube for that. But for the most part, once Berube got the job, obviously won the Stanley Cup in 2019, but every single season beyond that, they were a pretty safe playoff team until 2 years ago. He's a veteran coach, well respected, no bullshit under him, and I think guys like Matthews and Marner are going to need that more experienced guy. Hiring Sheldon Keefe fresh out of the AHL, what was he, like 40 years old? Not good. You got to bring in a hard ass. Craig Berube can be that hard ass, hold you accountable like the Toronto Maple Leafs players need to be. I like this hiring a lot. I'm going to go with an A-. Travis Green. When looking at Travis Green, I really didn't like this at first, but I have grown to like it a little bit more. I'm going to go with the C still. I don't love it considering, again, he was not very successful in Vancouver outside of the 2020 run that the Vancouver Canucks had, but I do think that was more so Jim Benning giving him a pretty poor roster. Yes, he did have some young budding superstars, and he helped develop them pretty solid. I mean, yeah, Pettersson, Hughes, Besser, all studs now. So I think he was given a little bit of a raw deal. Never really had the opportunity to be that high of a coach. Did his systems at all impress me in Vancouver? No, especially when you look at his last year when he got fired. He was my Jack Adams pick that year back in 2022, if you've been following for that long. But yeah, he's not the most creative X's and O's coach, but I think he's going to be a breath of fresh air in Ottawa. A guy like DJ Smith that was a very chummy, friendly players coach. I think Travis Green is going to, similarly to a Berube, instill some accountability and really get under their skin in Ottawa, get their feathers ruffled, because they don't make the playoffs this year. What the hell are we doing? Next up, Don Waddell, hired by the Columbus Blue Jackets. I almost said the Carolina Hurricanes. No, he resigned from Carolina, heading over to Columbus. I like this. I'm going to go with an A-, especially considering what we thought the other potential candidates were for this job. When looking at it, it was Ken Holland and Peter Chiarelli was talked about getting a serious role within the organization. I don't know if that's still going to happen. But Ken Holland or Don Waddell, you go with Don Waddell. Don Waddell was the top guy in Carolina since like 2017, 2018. Very impressive drafting record. Svechnikov kind of fell into his lap. But you think of guys like... what did he draft? Nate just, but still, Jarvis, getting steals, although they haven't played a ton in the NHL, like Nikishin, Jackson Blake, Scott Morrow. He's done a very good job replenishing that young core. And also, Carolina's just been one of the best teams in the entire NHL over the last 3 to 4 years. So yeah, when looking at Columbus, a team that has been arguably the least successful team ever since they walked into the NHL. Getting a veteran guy like that who can handle extensions, handle trades, solid. Brett Burns deal comes to mind as a great trade that he made down the line. Getting Teuvo Teravainen for pretty cheap. He's done a very good job. Taking the Patrick Marleau contract to eventually select Seth Jarvis with the first round pick that they got. He's been very good for the Carolina Hurricanes, and I expect he'll do a solid job in Columbus considering Jarmo Kekalainen. And back-to-back off seasons went for it, aggressive. Johnny Gaudreau, then the following offseason, Provorov Severson blew up in his face. I don't expect Don Waddell to make those same mistakes. Hopefully he doesn't try to be like aggressive with that. They probably need another 2 to 3 years of getting even more high-level prospects and just developing it. But it's going to be a tough job, but Don Waddell is a solid hire for them. Next up, Scott Arniel is the Winnipeg Jets head coach. I actually predicted this one correct. The assistant gets the full-time job. And yeah, it makes sense. The Jets, although crapped the bed in the playoffs, this was one of their most successful regular seasons of their entire franchise history. Bonus had to step away from the team because his wife was dealing with some medical stuff. Arniel was the interim head coach during that. They went 9-2-2. He seems like a good guy, seems like a smart guy. They're going to have to adapt their defensive strategy considering how much it got exposed against the Colorado Avalanche. Arniel, he's a guy that knows the players, so he probably has an inside track on how to adjust that. I don't think he's going to be stubborn. Would I have liked them to maybe bring someone from the outside? By the way, for the grade, I'm gonna go with a B- here. It's an okay hiring, but I probably would have liked them to get a more experienced guy. Arniel did actually coach for the Columbus Blue Jackets, funny enough, back in like 2010, 2011. But I understand Winnipeg's maybe not the most attractive job. They weren't going to land a Craig Berube, throw a massive bag at him. So Arniel, I think, again, similarly, we were talking about a guy like Dan Bylsma. Hopefully he learns from his mistakes in Columbus. He's been one of the better assistants in the entire NHL. And Winnipeg, yet again, can be a pretty solid playoff team. I think that's the expectation coming into next season. If Arniel cleans up some of the defensive aspects, they'll be a good team. Maybe you could win a round. Do I think they're winning the Stanley Cup? No, but they're going to be a solid team. So let me know in the comments. What do you think about this? Again, C+ for Ruff. Keefe gets a B. Tulsky, B+. Bylsma, B. Berube, A-. Travis Green, C. Waddell, A-. And then Arniel, B-. Let me know in the comments. What do you think? I'll be seeing you in the next one.